Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we'll be doing our 7,500 mile update on the Land Cruiser 250. Let's get right into it. Before we get into the things that I am not enjoying about 250 ownership, I want to discuss the things that I actually really enjoy about the new 250 Land Cruiser. And then when I get into the dirt on the 250, we're going to start with the things that annoy me the least. And then we'll end things with the stuff that annoys me the most about the new 250. So the first thing that I still really enjoy is the looks of the 250 Land Cruiser. I think they did a really good job with giving it an old school style, and no matter how long I own this car, it seems to always just look good. Whenever I see another one driving down the road, even if it's a 1958 with the unpainted lower section, I still think, man, that's a cool looking car. Now the next thing that I've really enjoyed is actually the fog lights. I've had a chance to use these fog lights. You can change the color from white to yellow. Yes, this is an OEM option on the 250. Really cool for off-road use, so that's something that I've also appreciated. The next thing is the overall size of the 250. It's really easy to drive and maneuver through parking lots to fit in parking spaces, but it's also big enough that you can store things, and it is also big enough to be able to fit people in it. And then although I've complained about the battery there in the trunk area, it works for most of the stuff that I use it for. So the size of the 250 has been really nice. Now this next thing just applies to the newest generation of Toyotas. I like how easy it is to fit big tires. So I've got a plus 25 offset on my 250 with these aftermarket wheels. These are 33s. Now if I turn the wheel all the way, I have about another inch of space, so I could most likely fit 34s without rubbing whatsoever. On my 200 series Land Cruiser we have in the garage here, I've got they're like almost 32.5-inch tall tires, plus 25 offset. So the same exact offset is what I have on the 250, and my tires in the front slightly rub, and I don't want to lift it. I prefer to stick with stock suspension on my vehicles, and also hello little cat sitting under the Sequoia. But anyways, it is something that's nice on the new 250 versus the old generation Toyotas where you can fit bigger tires from the factory. And the next thing I've really liked is actually just how well this interior holds up. It still looks brand new. Again, 7,500 miles isn't all that much. I have friends that have the new GX. I've also had a demo GX that had some miles on it. And stuff like trim on the door panel and especially the steering wheel shows a massive amount of wear. And the GX is now having paint issues from what I understand with stuff peeling up and everything. I have had zero issues with that. And so it seems like the 250 Land Cruiser is just holding up a little bit better. Now the first thing that is an annoyance to me with the 250 is all of the plastic. Still not over it. I absolutely hate all the plastic, exposed plastic. I'm okay if a manufacturer uses plastic. Like my 200 series Land Cruiser has plastic on the exterior, and our Sequoia has plastic on the exterior, but it's painted so it looks nice and premium. And a 4Runner with the 5th generation, everything was painted on the exterior. So I don't know why they didn't give the same treatment. And this is just the new Toyotas across the board. And so it still annoys me because it looks ugly, it looks cheap, and it's an expensive car. The next thing is the clearances on the 250. It does have rock rail protection skid plates, so I'm not too concerned when I run into stuff off-road. But it has been disappointing because, I've got bigger tires on my 250 than my 200 series, and the 200 series has not really bottomed out at all. So I don't know what it is with the clearances, but that's something that's annoying. It's like smaller tires, but somehow I am going to run into more stuff with this. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm also still not over how cheap this all feels. Like, it's so hollow sounding when you close the door and everything. Again, they definitely, Toyota does this every single new generation since like the 2000s, is they just keep cheaping out more and more. And the next thing that's kind of painful with 250 ownership is the comparisons. So there's really cool stuff on the market nowadays, like the Ineos Grenadier, 200 series Land Cruisers. They're not dirt cheap, but I mean, there's a lot of 200 series that are similar in price to a 250 when you look at them on the market. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard when you look at things and it's like, I'll be honest with you guys, I'd rather drive this than the 250 any day of the week. I've been driving both of them because I've been racking up the miles and, you know, making it so there's content for you guys. But personally, I prefer to drive that, even though it weighs more, 6,500 pounds versus 5,700 pounds over there, 282 horsepower, 331 pound-feet of torque versus 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque, but this just drives better. The transmission's smoother, the engine is smoother, everything is smoother with the Grenadier. And the thing is, if you get just a base model Trial Master, it's pretty much the same price as a 250. You still get a triple locked, crazy body on frame SUV, super well built, looks absolutely fantastic. And so that is one thing that I also kind of think about all the time while driving the 250s. It's like, if this was my only car, like if that was my only car, like I'd be looking at this stuff and just being like, man, I should have gone for something else maybe. Now, the last thing before we take it out and drive it is going to be just some of the items. Now, this doesn't shake while I drive, but the interior just creaks and moves so much. It doesn't have the same tight fit and finish of previous Toyotas, and I kind of already talked about how this feels hollow, but yeah, you just really notice that Toyota's build quality just is not what it used to be. Cheaper materials, and it seems like stuff is just not put together as well as it used to be. So we're quickly on the Grenadier because I just want to illustrate something in comparison to the 250 to show probably my biggest annoyance, and that is the powertrains. First off, in this Grenadier that's 6,500 pounds and has a 6-cylinder versus a 4-cylinder hybrid in the 250, I'm averaging over 17 miles per gallon. We'll compare that to what I've been averaging in the 250. Tire size on these vehicles is pretty much identical. So look at the RPMs here. Look at how you don't feel the transmission shifting. And the power, again, you guys can't feel what I'm feeling, so I have to describe it to you. The power band just feels like smooth, just very, very smooth. And actually after this, we'll pop into the 200 series so I can also show you another large engine. This is not that big of an engine, but you know, the 200 series does have a V8. Just show you how a smooth powertrain performs. But yeah, I think you guys get the point. This powertrain is incredibly smooth. And that is super important for off-road use, so you can have smooth power delivery when you're crawling and all of that. But then when you're just driving around town, I don't notice the powertrain. I just kind of get on the throttle and it just torques through everything. And it's again, even though this has way less power than the 250 and it's a heavier vehicle, it just drives better. It just drives better from a powertrain perspective. Like, look how smooth that is. Look at the RPMs just, and again, what you feel is you just feel this kind of wave of torque, this smooth wave of torque, and the transmission as it shifts gears, it's just like one gear to the next, just very calmly. So it's something to note here in the 200 series, 15 miles per gallon, and the engine is cold right now. So this is as abrasive as things are going to get, because as you know, a V8 warms up, the engine and transmission, everything gets, and as the transmission warms up too, everything gets a little bit smoother. But as you guys will notice, just like the Grenadier, and actually more so than the Grenadier, the powertrain is incredibly smooth and it's so nice off-road. This, out of all three of the vehicles, is the most comfortable off-road, but then it's also the best powertrain off-road in terms of how smooth the power delivery is. I really enjoy this while crawling. But you can see again with the gear shifts, just very smooth, and it doesn't even go up as high in the RPMs as the Grenadier. Again, it's got over 400 pound-feet of torque from a V8 that's naturally aspirated, so it's got a lot of power to grab from. But again, just a really nice experience. And so I think that, again, you look at the current competition, the Grenadier and some other vehicles in the market too, but mostly the Grenadier I feel like is what a lot of people are currently comparing the 250 to, and the Lexus GX. And then you look at, you know, the previous Land Cruiser, the 200 series, and you look at how smooth the engine and transmission are, and you go, man, the 250, what's it doing? And we'll get to that. I'll show you guys the 250 in just a moment. And I will say the KDSS in this generation, so nice. It's not quite as sharp as the new eKDSS, but it's good enough. So I think you guys get the point. Super, super smooth power delivery. 17 miles per gallon with a turbo 4-cylinder hybrid. So you notice that it has to rev up similarly high to the Grenadier, which is fine. Again, I understand it's a 4-cylinder turbo. I don't mind revs in a car as long as they're smooth. Now, what I feel with the transmission is it's like, again, the Grenadier, smooth transition, the 200 series, smooth transition. This is like gunk, and it doesn't make a clunking sound, but it just feels like it almost hits into something as you're shifting from gear to gear. And I don't know if you guys will be able to see it on the RPMs. And it's not the worst. It's just when you drive this back to back with something like the Grenadier, something like the 200 series that has a very nicely tuned powertrain, this doesn't feel all that great. In isolation, this feels fine. It's just back to back where you're like, it's not, and it sounds bad too. The 4-cylinder really sounds like it's struggling, even on the low end. Now, I will say that the low end torque's impressive. This feels even torqueier than the 200 series in some ways, but it's at higher RPMs too. The 200 series kind of purposely stays at low RPMs. This, you notice it goes up. So it's not the worst on the planet, but it's pretty abrasive. And I know I'm gonna get a bunch of comments. Well, Lexus GX550 with the V6. The V6 isn't any smoother than this, and the V6 doesn't sound any better than this. The V6 sounds like it struggles just as much because they put a smaller turbo with the GX. And so I think that my personal take, they should have either just given both of these vehicles the full-on big turbo V6 that is in both the LX 600 and the Tundra and the Sequoia, or they should have done a different powertrain other than this and then the small turbo V6. I understand, again, people are going to talk about the smaller turbo, reliability, and all of that. It doesn't seem like any of the turbo engines from Toyota are very reliable right now. Anyways, but yeah, I don't know. It's just disappointing. And this powertrain, again, it's not the worst on the planet. I do like the hybrid part, right, where it'll shut off when you're at lower speeds. I know some people don't like that. I actually like it. I think that it's kind of a nice feel. Like right now, I think it's off. And then it's quick to respond once you put your foot in the throttle. Like here, I'm at a stop. It's quick. It's pretty quick to respond overall for a turbo 4-cylinder. It does fine. I just have no idea why Toyota. I'm going to turn this off. I just have no idea why Toyota decided to do a turbo 4-cylinder for such a big vehicle, because it's like you don't get any better fuel economy, and it makes the driving experience not that great. I kind of forget, like the suspension in this is pretty comfortable. I kind of forget how comfortable the suspension is and how good the sound insulation is, because I'm just sitting there annoyed at how abrasive the powertrain can be. And the other things, the top end of the powertrain is pretty pathetic. Like it just doesn't, like the Grenadier, as you rev it out, if you've driven a BMW, you understand the feel that I'm talking about. As you rev that thing out, it just keeps going and going and going, and then it shifts, and it's really nice and smooth. Same thing with that. It's got that, if you've driven any big V8 vehicle, you understand what I'm talking about. It just keeps going to the red line, and then with that 8-speed that's very smooth, it just boom to the next gear. It's not the quickest. The Grenadier is definitely quicker with the transmission. Out of all three of these, it has the quickest. But this, it's like it sounds like the engine's going to explode, and then it kind of like hits. It almost feels kind of like single clutch like, if you've ever driven a single clutch vehicle where it just hits and then it shifts. It's not, again, nothing's wrong. I've had this taken to the Toyota service department. Nothing's wrong with it. And I'm only at, I mean, I'm not technically at 7,500 miles, but if you guys don't know, I commute like 100 to 200 miles per day when I'm filming review videos. So like, I'll be at 7,500 the next time I take it out to work, which will be like Monday, Tuesday next week. But the point that I'm trying to make here is it's not the smoothest, and there's nothing wrong with it. The Toyota dealerships checked it. You know, they've inspected the car. I've been doing my services that I'm supposed to with this car, so it's not like there's anything actually going on with it. So I don't know. I'm still conflicted on the 250 here, if I'm being completely honest. At this point, I'm only keeping it for the content. That's just the truth. I love the Grenadier. I have that for content and because I enjoy driving it. Obviously, that's just the vehicle that I'll drive until the wheels fall off. This, on the other hand, I don't know if the content didn't get the views that it got because Toyota has such a big audience. I don't think I'd keep it, to be honest. It's not the worst car on the planet, but it's also just, it's Toyota. I think Toyota could have done a much better job considering what they've built in the past. And quickly, I almost forgot to include this in the video. The tiny fuel tank and the incredibly small amount of fuel range is still incredibly annoying. I get maybe 230, maybe 240 miles of range on a tank if I'm lucky. Ridiculous.